I talked to Alpha Company, right, and told them, hey, it might be contact. The reason why is there was a hill, and the Iraqis were in the hill, not beside it, not on it. They had dug 50 caves. Each one of the caves could handle 6 or 8. They had put all of them. There's ultimately going to be 344 guys we captured. We had no idea that there were that many damn people there. We just didn't. They take off, and then I hear heavy fire, and it looks like Armageddon. We hit them with artillery, then we bring back in the attack guys, and boom, boom, boom. And guess what? They're not giving up.
Welcome to Combat Story. I'm AJ Pasciuti, a retired Marine, Force Recon, Scout Sniper, and Marine Gunner with 21 years of service, multiple combat tours, and a lifetime of lessons learned in the arena itself. On this show, I sit down with warriors from every front line to uncover what combat truly feels like and how it shapes the way we see life, each other, and ourselves. This is Combat Story.
Before Desert Storm became a 100-hour ground war, before the world watched green tracers and precision strikes on television, there was a map. And on that map, 48 hours before the largest air assault in American history, something didn't add up. 2 young intelligence analysts looked at the division's assessment and said, "This is wrong. There are Iraqi forces in that landing zone." Their battalion commander faced the decision that every leader eventually confronts: trust the system or trust their team. Today, we sit down with Colonel Frank Hancock, author of Operation Desert Storm: How 2 Young Intelligence Analysts and an Infantry Battalion Changed the War in Iraq. We talk about the resurrection of the post-Vietnam Army, a 200-mile air assault deep into Iraq, exposure to chemical weapons, and the leadership moment where moral courage and disciplined trust may have altered the course of the war. This is Combat Story. Welcome back to Combat Story, everyone. As always, I'm AJ Pasciuti, and I'm very excited to introduce my new friend, retired Army Colonel Frank Hancock, author of the book Operation Desert Storm: How 2 Young Intelligence Analysts and an Infantry Battalion Changed the War in Iraq. So with that, sir, I'd love to introduce you to the show.
Hey, thank you very much, AJ. Appreciate it.
Very happy to have you on. So I've gone through your entire book through here, and I've had a heck of a time, kind of reliving this experience. One of the things that I really enjoyed about this is this was done a little different than I've seen. And I felt that, if I may, what I saw as your leadership style coming through in your writing style, the ability for what I saw as seeking voices from a number of people around your command, and then eventually including them with letters and excerpts that they wrote from different perspectives in the book. Can you tell me briefly as to why you made that kind of decision, and what you think led you to that point in the first place?
Yeah, the big reason was accuracy, right? You can filter stuff through me, give me stuff, but I really, when I tell it, I'm going to put something on it. So we've been working on this. There were 2 other guys, Jared Tertichny and Tom Guliff. One was my S1, and Guliff, and Tertichny was one of my XOs, company XOs. And I had an epiphany. I think it was me that said, why am I doing this? Why don't I let these guys just talk themselves, right? Give me what happened, right? And so when I did that, I said I wanted 2 things. I wanted honesty. Just tell the frickin' truth. You read the story. The story is like, no, it did happen, right? Right. And then I wanted them to be their story,
Yep.
right? Like this whole thing it's not my story. I'm a part of it, but it's not my story, right? It's our story. The people that were there, and they were doing different parts. And like, if you've been into combat any, and I haven't seen that much, what I saw is there's no way you're going to micromanage anything. You can't.
Correct.
Right? You either train them or you don't train them. And so when I did this, I had about maybe 75 names, right, and emails. And it was from the different companies and the different aspects. And I sent them all, hey, you got a story, send it to me, and we'll blend it together. So that's what we did. We sent it out. And when they came and, we put it in. I sent it back to him. I said, "Is this accurate?" No, I did. No, hell, I'm not gonna. No, is this accurate? Right? Because when I put this in the book, I want it to be what you said. So what you get is you have different problems or different parts of what went on looked at from different perspectives. And sometimes the perspectives are a little different. Yeah, what I'm looking at is not what that young private, the 19-year-old private, is looking at. Right? He's looking at something different, and he has to solve his part of the puzzle. Right? So that's why I did it that way. I thought, yeah, we'll do it this way. Just one other thing. When I was putting the book together, that's maybe about 3 weeks, 4 weeks before I started. I had reread Erwin Rommel's Attacks, right? And when he said something, he'd go on, and he's looking at the situation. See, he wrote it in 1937, so he was 23 years later. He's a lieutenant colonel, and he's writing it, and then he puts in his observations. It's totally just like, here's what happened, and here's what I think you can get out of it. So you saw in the book the observations. Well, I go, well, hell, I'm a colonel, retired. I'm not Rommel, but I can tell you what I think. If it's the important point, this was the important point of what occurred. So that's kind of how we went about writing the book.
Well, I really enjoyed that because so there was this, it's very, so what I'd almost say would be more commonplace to what I understand now is a lot of decentralization of like, so there is a hierarchy of intelligence, there's a hierarchy of understanding, there's a hierarchy of disseminating information. But just as what we saw, what in my generation of conflict was a lot of heavy emphasis on decentralization, you encompass that, you capture that in this book. But what I also found very, very interesting was the very beginnings of the book of where that may not have been the norm inside of the Army, especially as we were transitioning out of the Vietnam War and moving away from a very specific type of fighting that war. Can you describe to me a little bit of what it was like entering into the Army in 1973
Sure.
and that transition? Because there was the very different type of Army moving into the smash mouth Army
Right.
of the 1990s and a heavy, I would say, ideological shift along those ways. And I think that was really portrayed very, very well in the book.
Well, thank you. So if you transition back, I came in 1972, graduated in June 1972, married my wife, went to Fort Benning, went to Airborne School, Ranger School. I go to Germany. All the things that you're, whatever. No, it was always funny I got married right after I graduated, and people said, why? I said, I was locked down with 4,000 male cadets. Why do you think I got married? It's like, why'd you get married so soon? What do you think? If you saw my wife, you'd understand why too. I go, I'm not going to let her get away. So anyway, when I go to Germany, it's 73, and the peace treaty was just signed. The peace treaty was just signed. And the United States Army was a broken institution. It just was. So it was broken for a lot of reasons. The country, maybe 40% of the country didn't support the military. We were still a draft army, and President Nixon in January of 73 said, we're going to go to a volunteer army. It'll take us a little bit. And so, just saying, the Army had drugs, race problems, leadership, and worst of all, we had a lack of discipline. And the other things that I just mentioned went into that. So I tell people we couldn't have beat the Salvation Army, much less the Soviet Army. We just couldn't. We were just not a very good army. So what happened? One, the Vietnam vets that came out and decided to stick, and they're going to stick in the Army, they're going to go, we're not going to do that again. Right? They're not. So inside the Army itself, there's this, and it's not all at once, but we're going to change doctrine, right? We're going to bring in this airland battle, right? We're going to bring that in, not yet. we're going to start to recruit soldiers, right, that want to be there, these volunteers. And as you see, we go from 73 up into the early 1980s. The standards for that's going to be very, very hard, right? It's going to be hard to get into the service. Why? Because we want good people, right? So we have that. We have doctrine. We have training. We have the National Training Center, the Joint Readiness Training Center, the Training Center, where when you go there, it's like this is really hard business, right? So don't expect to get a pass. You've either done it, or if you've not done it, well, it sucks to be you, right? So all these things go along. Plus, politically, we have some earth-shaking events. One was the Yom Kippur War.
Right.
Right. We had our training and doctrine command come us right after the Yom Kippur War in like November or December of 73 and say, we're not prepared. We won't make it. We won't make it. We won't be able to withstand with our equipment and the way we train what would have happened to the Israelis and to the Syrians and Egyptians. It's too lethal, right? So we have to figure out what we're going to do. So all this inside in leadership too, it was, you know what we just did doesn't necessarily work. So we need to, there was a big power down, give it to the lowest level that can handle that responsibility, let them figure it out, right? So we start to train, we start to educate. And so we get in the big five, we get the M1, the Bradley, the Patriot, the Black Hawk, they come in and they're still with us. And then I'm going to mention one more thing. 1980, Reagan gets elected. And so the Army had been internally fixing itself. Now comes the funds. Now comes the money. Oh, yeah. No, we quit talking. Oh, no. We're going to do. So you see, it was the best time. You would have loved it. The 80s, it was so innovative. People said, make the mistakes, fix the mistakes. Go ahead. You can use your frickin' brain. And so those soldiers and officers that came in, by 1990, I get to the Smash Mouth, right? It was a epic. It was an epic turnaround. And I think I put it in 1973. When they did the Gallup poll, the military is the worst. 1990, we're the best thought of institution, right? So that whole transition, a lot of people came in, and a lot of the Vietnam vets said, here's our direction. And then when Reagan came in, it was, here's the funds to do what you need to do.
So you got the financial backing. Yeah.
Yeah, no shit. We were the best in the world. We kind of figured we were, but we were soon to prove it when we got to Saudi Arabia and into Iraq.
So that's what I found very, very fascinating from the beginning portions of the book was, so towards my own personal journey was the latter portion of my career. I retired as a Chief Warrant Officer 3 after 21 years, but the last 4 years of our career, the Marine Corps was undergoing a really big shift as well. We had gone from, fourth generation warfare, the kind of, counterinsurgency that I had grown up in. And our commandant said that we needed to change and face the next threat, right? Asymmetrical warfare, as well as the heavy technological advantage and meeting actual peered adversaries. But what I found inside of that ideological shift was, and I'm interested to see how you experienced it, because we had, so inside of the Marine Corps, we had maneuverists, and then we had attritionists. And so the attritionists were kind of the holdovers from like the World War II, right? That kind of bomb everything and then send massive amounts of troops. And then maneuverists that came up with, I have the book behind me by the Air Force Colonel John Boyd, was coming up during that time frame, was being able to very light strike, heavy maneuverability, move in and attack an enemy's ability to make war. Well, what transitioned for us from maneuverists, so the maneuverists had eventually superseded the attritionists. And then we moved into this newer kind of conflict facing a potential peered adversary in the future, was saying, okay, how do we adapt even further, and continue to have this bias for action and a bias for potential change, learning on old lessons? The challenge that I personally faced was that there was a ton of institutional resistance and at times institutional defiance between different rank structures or hierarchy from the federal government through the individual ranks themselves. Did you see something like that?
Oh
Or
yeah,
was
sure. Yeah, no,
Oh, okay,
right.
okay. Yeah.
No. You're no. Well, I'll pontificate here for a second.
I love it.
Right? Yeah, no. So I go back to the 1982, and our FM 100-5 comes in, and forever, the U.S. military, because who are we looking at? We're looking at the Soviets. We're looking at a near peer, and in Germany, they had a, I don't know. I don't know if we could have beat them. I'm not so sure. If they'd have come, I'm not so sure. But anyway, there were the smart guys, Don Starry, Huba Vastasega, Depew. These really smart, and Starry and Depew were World War II guys who go, yeah, we can't stay on the defense. We can't attrit them because of you. You can't stay on the tactical defense and the strategic defense. You could be one or the other, but if you stay on it the whole time frame, eventually you're going to get beat. So there came into airland battle, right? Agility, initiative, depth, synchronization, a war of movement. Okay, which is great. It's great, except when push comes to shove, right? You're going to have to kill somebody on the other side, right? I can maneuver all I want. When you take a look at 7th Corps, the tank heavy corps in Desert Storm, yes, they maneuvered, and yes, they went, but eventually they killed a lot of Iraqis and a lot of Iraqi tanks, right? So I'm always of the position, right? You can't go too far in one way or the other. You can't say we don't need tanks. That's just stupid, right? What are they fighting with in Ukraine? Oh, that's right. They're fighting with tanks. Why? Because it's better than nothing. It's better than your fatigue shirt, right? So you have drones. I got that. And I don't want to get like I know, but you have to have a balance. If you're, again, this is me. I'm my war college hat.
I love it.
If you've got, just say, if you got superpower interest, which we do, right? Our interest is not just the defense of the United States. There are other interests, oil supply, energy supply, raw minerals, and all that stuff. You better be able to do a variety of things. That will include attrition. That will also include movement. If you look at what we did, hell, whoever did what we did, go 100 miles the first day in helicopters, then go another 100 miles the next day, close the Euphrates. Why didn't the Iraqis get out? That's right, they couldn't. Euphrates Valley, Highway 8's closed, right? Sucks to be them, right? So, right. So if you go back, this is 1989. The Army was trying to get rid of the tanks. Cold War is over. The Soviet Union is imploding. And there is this big push to get rid of our armor forces. Okay, 6 months later, where are we? Oh, that's right. We're in Desert Shield.
Shield, yeah.
And and we have to bring this freaking huge armor corps, right? Because we're going to regime change. We're going to regime change the Iraqis. So we have to have both of them, I think. And that's, as they say, there's the rub. Shakespeare would say, how much of each are you going to have, right? You got to have something of both of them.
Well, I love the fact that you, as a service, kind of collectively looked into the mirror and had a conversation with yourself and saying, like, can we fight tonight? And sometimes the answer is something that we don't want to hear. We don't get to wax poetic, right? We don't get to go over the top and say, yeah, we could totally, accomplish all these things. It's like an honest conversation. I think that was very mature of the service at the time to say that if we were to try to fight tonight, our weapons overmatch because of the Yom Kippur War was not there, right? We didn't have the attrition, the numbers for the attrition that the Soviets would have. What was the term that the Army used? Fight outnumbered and win, I think.
Fight outnumbered and win, yeah. Okay, so how are you going to do that? You can't stay on defense all the time. You just can't.
Absolutely.
You got to get to the flying, skip behind them, cut their logistics, and make them want to quit, right? But the damn Soviets were, I mean, they had, I don't care if it didn't work. There was just a lot of it. Right.
Which is a very real problem. A
Right.
very real,
Right. When Napoleon said, a quantity has a quality of its own. Yeah, no kidding.
I hadn't heard that, but that is exactly.
Oh yeah,
correct.
that's big. Big
My
Napoleon
goodness.
said that.
You know, I really love. So one of my favorite things to do is read segments that authors have written back to them. And I grew. It's really cool. I really grew to kind of know you and respect you through your writing because I often I often compare, like, I've had my own litany of types of commanders that I've served from an enlisted level and from an officer later on in my career. And I try to find qualities that I'm like, oh, wow, I could really, like, I could work under this person or I couldn't work under that person. It says officers and enlisted soldiers respected me, but did not fear me. Fear breeds inaction and risk aversion, which can be fatal. Can you go on
Yeah.
to a little bit to expand on that and where you came to learn that, right? Because this is also uncharacteristic for a 1973 type Army. How did you learn that along the way and that to become your leadership philosophy?
Right. My second company commander was a guy named Al Todd. Al Todd was, I think he retired as a lieutenant colonel. He should have retired as a lieutenant general. He really should have. Just the greatest guy. But here's the thing. He was hard as woodpecker lips. He was a hard man. He was a smart guy. He was an athlete. He was everything I wanted to be. And he was just a great combat leader. Had 2 silver stars.
Wow.
Oh yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. He had 2 silver stars. Right. And so he was my second company commander. There was no fear. I didn't fear him, but I couldn't, there was nowhere I could respect him more. He just was just a wonderful guy. And so there's a passage in there where I mention all these guys that touched me, right? Just really, really good. My battalion commander, Joe Bolt, George Baxter, Tom Vaughn, they were brigade commanders. Charlie Ottstott, he was my division commander. I was his SGS and secretary of the general staff and deputy operations guy. These guys were so good, so smart, so compassionate, but they were hard at the same time. They knew their business. When you have people underneath, you want them to talk to you.
Yeah.
To tell you, hey, Colonel Hancock, you're going off the cliff. Right? And they won't tell you that. Right? I'm not the smartest guy going, but I know enough that the more input I get, I can decide. But if I don't get the input,
Yep,
I'm not doing anything.
yeah, you're
right?
an emperor without clothes. Absolutely.
Oh yeah, no, nobody gives a he's let him go off the right. So I wanted them to respect me, but I didn't want them to fear. If you got bad news, tell me. It won't get better tomorrow. Tomorrow's not going to be a better day. Just freaking tell me. I'm not going to rip your face off. I might feel like it, but I'm not going to do it. Right. So I had commanders like that. That's where I learned. I had Bill Craven, another guy in Hawaii, my battalion commander. He wouldn't do that. Right. He just wouldn't. Some of these guys made general. Most of them did not, but they were damn good. They just were.
Yeah. I lived in a unit at one point when I was an officer that the whispers in the staff meetings was no bad news to the boss.
That's ridiculous.
100%.
And what are you, girl?
Yeah.
What is
High school,
what do you think? Yeah, no.
And then what I felt was that was a dereliction of duty because your job is to inform the commander. And the commander's job is to make decisions on the information that they're given.
Yeah.
And if they're given false information because of fear, then we're failing everybody up and down the chain of command.
Yeah.
And I've lived in environments like that. So I really resonated with me.
Yeah. Yeah. I was like that way forever. Right. I always thought if you can have a young troop or a young officer and they want to come to work, then that's good. If they want to come and do their job, but if every day they're going, he's going to rip my face off. Well, hell, they'll do everything they can to prevent the surgery, right? So that includes not telling you what you probably need to know. Why make it miserable for them, right? Just set the conditions for them to succeed, and let's get on with it. And no damn drama. Let's just get the mission done, and then let's go have a beer or something.
Right. Well, this tone really seemed to set the command climate that I was able to see, of which comes back in, to tenfold later on, right? Because again, what you've done is you've created this, not, and there's always a fine line. And I talk to a lot of young leaders as well, as like, I don't want to open it up for, the complaints department all the time, right? But there's a fine line of being able to say, like, I'm not an authoritarian, right? But I'm also not,
Right.
a help desk, right?
I'm not your buddy. I'm not your friend. I'm your commander.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean that I don't care about you,
Yeah.
right? There's a part in there where I said you need to look at your soldiers are volunteers. They want to be in. They signed. I want to be a soldier. Okay, fine. And I think you ought to treat them like your son or your daughter, right? Think of them in that way, right? Train them, get them ready. I'm not their friend. I'm their father. Well, I'm your commander.
Sure.
But I do give a heck about you. I do care. Yeah.
Yep.
So
That's a great,
right.
I mean, honestly, a really, really great analogy. I used to get frustrated with, and every service has it, but when we would get, young new Marines to a unit, and the first thing that they had to do was go through some like rite of passage where we treated them like garbage, right? And I would like, so less than 1% of the United States volunteers for military service.
Right.
And then they go through this rite of passage where they become a soldier, they become a Marine, and then we treat them like garbage when they get here.
Yeah,
like, I'm confused by this. Like, we don't have a lot of them to spare. Why are we making it so terrible for these people?
Yeah.
Like we like punch them in the stomach and be like, welcome to the suck. And you're like, I mean, I guess.
Yeah. No, and that's exactly. And again, it is what it is. Everybody's got their own way. But if you were going to get in trouble with me, drugs was one way.
Yeah.
And the other way was abusing a troop. And if you abuse the troop, you're going to run afoul of me and you won't like it. That's just the way it is. So don't do that. Right. And the company commanders knew that. The first sergeants knew that. They all knew who, and the heck of it is my sergeant major, who was the greatest of all.
I love it.
Right?
Yeah.
Oh, this guy's he's just a legitimate badass. You can't get past him. We thought the same way, right? So there was no slippage between us on that. We were locked arms, and Sergeant Major Riley, no, that ain't going to happen with him.
Oh, combat.
In combat, right? Yeah, who has two nicknames? He had two nicknames, right? If you saw the guy, and then I'll talk later about him, but 25 years later, I'm reading these books about Doc Toth because I knew he was in the battle. He's in there in 3 different books as an E6, right? As the very intelligent mortar platoon sergeant, because he was bringing in 81 millimeter 50 yards away, right? He's right up and right down. Oh, what? Yeah. No, he was such a badass. He knew everything, and he could motivate a blade of grass. I mean, he really could. He could. Right? So like, hell, he motivated me. Right?
I love that.
He could. Right?
I love that.
Grass would be standing at attention. But he didn't yell. He was just the whole, everything that he did, he lived. He lived it as a soldier, right? So again, that command philosophy, and I had an XO, the Duke, right? Who gets a nickname of the Duke, was the same. We were the same way. We're all locked. We're going to take care of these troops. We're going to be hard. We're going to be trained, but we're going to take care of the troops, right? We're going to take care of them. So
absolutely love that.
Yeah.
So take me through a little bit of the history of kind of the lead up to Desert Shield.
Yeah, sure. Okay. So again, we go back. Berlin Wall fell. It's 1990. It looks like, in the next year it will, the Soviet Union is going to implode. So everybody is thinking of peace dividend. So the Army itself is thinking of how we're going to cut. Right, we're going to cut. They'll cut in 93, but how we're going to cut the forces. So you have over here in the Middle East, you have the Iraqis. Iraqis have fought 1980 to 88, this huge war with the Iranians, right? You have over 1 million people killed between the side. Poison gas is used, all kinds of things. Well, Iraq is knee deep in debt, and they're looking to tell the other Arab countries, hey, we fought the Iranians, we fought the Persians, right? We kept these guys out of here. Well, hell, nobody's listening. They don't care. I guess they don't care, right? And so the Iraqis had always coveted Kuwait, and they had this theory that it was their 19th province. So on the 2nd of August, 1991, they attack, and within a day, they've seized Kuwait. And when they did that, who saw that coming? Nobody. Nobody saw it coming. No.
Because Arabs didn't attack Arabs.
Arabs don't. Yeah, CNN was the only one you're listening to. This ain't gonna happen. And like in the book, I said the only guy that told me was Delgado, my S2. He came in. It was like the day before. He says, "Sir, they're going to attack." I said, "Nah, don't worry about that. Hell, on TV they're saying it's not." He says, "Sir, I'm telling you, I looked at. They're going to attack." So on August 2nd, they attacked. Who saw it coming? Nobody. Within a week, the army, the nation is going to Saudi Arabia, right? What really forced us our hand is the Saudi Arabia was threatened by the Iraqis. The Iraqis, I think it was 3 or 4 divisions, went right on their border. And if they took Saudi Arabia, they would have Iraq oil, Kuwaiti oil, and Saudi Arabian oil is probably about 35-40% of the world's oil. There was no way that George Bush the first was going to allow that to happen. So now we're going to war. And hell, who saw that? There is no. So within a week, we're leaving, right? Fort Campbell is emptying out. We're sending the Apaches. We're sending 2nd Brigade, the DRF, the division ready to force first, right? The Marines are going. The 82nd is sending a brigade. The Air Force. And we're going, holy, you got to be kidding me, right? No. And so my unit was the Division Ready Force 9. We were the last ones to deploy. But we're also the one that has to push everybody out. The most thankless of thankless jobs. You would have all these columns and convoys coming up. We have to get them on a train or on a plane or on the road. We're basically taking Fort Campbell and pushing it out. And when was the last time that was done? You got to go back to 1965, right? The 101st hadn't been in combat since the Vietnam War. So we had practices. I had this guy, Tertechny. He had a Sergeant Yunke and all these lieutenants and young captains that I had. Tertechny was the battalion movement officer, S3 Air, right? He's just a brilliant young man. He ended up being a colonel retired, just brilliant, right? And I have in there some of his excerpts of what he had to do, right?
It was fascinating because, again, I'm correlating, what is it? What's past is prologue, right? Or history doesn't repeat itself, but it rhymes, right?
It rhymes or mimics or whatever.
Yeah. So I'm like reading through these things and cackling because I've seen these exact scenarios develop. So August 2nd, right, is Kuwait is invaded. Saudi Arabia is being threatened. By August 6th, you're starting to deploy, right, with, and by the 9th, I think it is, you guys are deploying, and then you are the people helping to push them out.
Right.
The challenge that everyone faces, and I've heard this grumble across the Marine Corps a whole bunch, is like, well, we're at war. Those rules don't matter anymore. Yep. The old way.
Tell the Air Force that.
Yes.
You tell them you're going to put it on that C5. You're not.
Without the proper inspections or loading it correctly.
It's not getting on. Right.
Absolutely.
Not going to get on.
So I love this point in the book where it is, and we don't have to use the gentleman's name, but there is a full bird.
I'll use it. It was Colonel Garrett. Colonel in the Aviation Brigade. Yeah, no, he was under tremendous pressure, right? They wanted his Apaches now. Get them on the plane now.
Yesterday. Yeah,
right?
right.
Yesterday.
Yeah.
They want them now. And so everybody's shoving it down his throat, and he's just reacting probably as a colonel with all that responsibility, like, Lieutenant, you get this goddamn thing on here, or I'm going to come and rip your face off.
Yeah.
Okay.
I love how this scenario developed, and I thought what also showed was one, the humans are fallible, but they're
Right.
also teachable. So what I
Exactly.
loved about this story was that the colonel jumped down the throat of the lieutenant, right? You know, kind of chewed his ass, right? And then the general, right, cruises up and says, "Hey, young lieutenant," right? You know, or right, is like, is it lieutenant if I'm correct, right?
That's right.
It-
Yeah, it's Lieutenant Tertechny. Yeah, he knows. Yeah.
yeah. And so the general's like, "Hey, how's everything going?" And then the lieutenant is in this like moral dilemma, right? He's like,
it's tremendous dilemma.
"Oh God, I got to tell on this colonel, right, who's not following the rules." But then I love how there's this enlisted soldier who's like, grab on, right? You know,
Grab him, clang them together. Tell him. That was Sergeant Yunke. Yunke's a hard-nosed, really smart NCO. He was this guy's platoon sergeant. Then he took him up to battalion, and that in itself was a microcosm of what are you going to do? You going to do the right thing, or are you just going to slide to the right?
and sometimes be forced by, again, a lieutenant to a colonel. For any of the non-military listeners, those are almost 25 years apart in service, right? You know,
Right.
like, so this is not like an easy thing for a lieutenant.
No,
It's, you know,
no.
And so I think that it was very good of him to tell the general. And then again, how
Right.
you responded. What does he also let you know that this altercation had happened?
Yeah.
And what I found really, really fascinating about the colonel was he pulled the lieutenant aside. He made amends with the fact that he had made a mistake,
Right.
but that this lieutenant was the gateway and there was a protocol. Can you
Yeah.
take me through that scenario as well?
Yeah, sure. No. So my lieutenant gets flamed on by the Aviation Brigade commander. He got flamed, he got scorched, right? And so maybe 15 minutes later, the assistant division commander for operations, Brigadier General Shelton, who was a hard man, who would later become the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, right? No, he did, right? No, Shelton was a hard man. He comes up and asks the lieutenant, who had just been immolated by the colonel, what's going on? And so the lieutenant is here. Right here is the general. And on the other side of him, on the back side of the general can't see him, who was the senior NCO, Sergeant Yunke, basically grabbing his crotch, saying, hold him and tell him the problem. And so Tertechny does. He says that the Aviation Brigade, in their haste to get on the aircraft, are not prepared. They're just not prepared. So the general looks at him. He takes it all in and says, okay, Lieutenant, we're all learning. And then he goes, according to another lieutenant who relates it to Tertechny. This was Sean Rager, who watched all this. The general just locked the colonel's boots, just locked him, right, and flamed on him. So the colonel, and again, in his defense, comes back, I think, and acts like a man.
Yeah.
Right? He acts like a grown man, said, Lieutenant, I probably was too hasty on this. Help me out and get my guys on there. And so it all fixes itself and it goes forward. But I go back to
but teachable.
Fallible but teachable, and kind of the moral courage of the lieutenant. Because I'm not sure I'd have the testicular fortitude to do that. I'm going, like, you're telling, because you know what's going to happen. Somebody's going to get flamed on, and it's going to be the colonel, right? Yeah. And you go, what am I going to do? Well, I'm going to let's go do the right thing. Assisted by the NCO, who said, we got to fix this, to himself. You know, we got to fix this now. And the way to fix it is you tell him. And so, of course, they call me up, and I go, all right, okay, did you do the right thing? Yeah. Did you get fired? No. Oh, okay, fine. I'll be down there, right? Because I had to get, not that he couldn't take, I wanted to go down there and give him some top cover, right? Because I'm at home and we're working 24/7. He thinks it was I think this was at night. I think they woke my ass up about 11 o'clock. As I remember, that one again, I didn't put it in the book, but as I remember, I got woken up with a phone call saying, "Come down here, or you might want to come down here."
You know, like, and then I'm sure there was a deliberation of like, okay, who's got to call the boss right now?
No, that's, well, again, that's moral courage, because he didn't want me to be blindsided, because I could have been blindsided, and I'm going, all right, whatever, okay, because I'm not going to be a general, but I'm happy to be here. But we have to get this done, right? We're 5 days into this process. We have to get this, got to get everybody on the airplane. But it's a great microcosm.
We have, so with the, anyone who kind of watches the show knows I have a love-hate relationship with social media. I think what happens is when people do things on social media, they're often only showing highlight reels.
Right.
They're not showing the small, minute
Right.
moments that define people. I think to me, this was a defining moment of the book. One, it exemplifies your leadership style, what you're able to provide to the young enlisted and young officers to have the courage to speak truth to power, respectfully, of course.
Right.
And then again, from the teachable side of having a person, kind of take their medicine and be like, hey man, Lieutenant,
Right.
I messed up. Sorry about
Acted
that.
like a man.
Let's get back to business. Those things, when not conveyed appropriately or when not conveyed at all to young leaders across the world, I think that they get kind of locked into this idea that they have to be, I don't know, tyrants, right? And like,
Right.
and if you were a tyrant, I don't know that you would have had the command climate to be able to have this lieutenant say something, which could have led to catastrophic results later on down the road. So again, kudos to you on that, because I think that really that speaks to command climate, in my personal opinion.
Yeah, and again, I looked across at my battalion commanders, the other guys. Most of them were kind of like that. I think that was the way the 1990 Army looked, right? We had gone on this trajectory from that really not so good Army to 1990, and we kind of looked at ourselves and said, yeah, you got to act like an adult. You have to be kind of a serious person. And then again, I go back to the guys that I had. They'd have done the same. They'd have done the same thing. They'd have said, "Look, let's fix the problem, and
Yep.
we're not going to kill anybody here for not doing exactly what exactly should have been done. So let's get on with it."
Absolutely. Professional military adds to lethality, and is part of that equation in my personal assessment. Love that. So now that you guys have kind of solved this problem, you guys are kind of getting underway. Take me to what happens. What happens next?
Okay, fine. So the division is leaving, right? And so what I just want to go, what are we're leaving all our loved ones, dependents, right? And I put in the book about my wife, right? I'm going to leave a lieutenant with a broken leg, right? Behind. He can't deploy, and my wife and her family support group. And so we're going to try before we leave to set it up where they can handle the problems that we know is going to come. There's going to be freaking problems. It was the first time, and I don't even know, in 1965, Fort Campbell was emptied out like it was emptied out. Everybody left. This is kind of funny. Can I say something funny? The only people that were left, the Task Force 160th was left.
All right.
And the reason why is that it was a strategic reserve, right? You don't want to lose these guys. They're too well trained, but their nickname is Night Stalkers, right? So they quickly became Wife Stalkers. That was right? And you're going, who the hell's left behind? Those guys, those bad, because they're all badasses, right? Those guys are going to be behind. So anyway, I don't know what they were doing. I'm sure they were doing something, but initially they weren't deployed. I know it's kind of funny now. So anyway.
This episode is brought to you by Bub's Naturals. As I've gotten older, I've noticed recovery takes longer than it used to, and mental clarity isn't as automatic as it once was either. That's why Bubs Naturals creatine monohydrate has become part of my routine. It's not just a bodybuilder thing. It's one of the most researched supplements out there, and for me, it's made a real difference in both athletic performance and staying sharp mentally, especially on the days that run long. Bubs makes it with Creapure, the gold standard, no junk and no fillers, and it's NSF certified for sport, so I know exactly what I'm putting into my body. They're also a tribute to Navy SEAL Glenn Bub Doherty, who gave his life in Benghazi. Bubs gives 10% of its profits to charity in his honor. Live better longer with Bubs Naturals. And Combat Story listeners get an additional 20% off at bubsnaturals.com with the code COMBAT. That's BUBSnaturals.com, and make sure to use the code COMBAT and tell them that Combat Story sent you. And now, back to our show.
So on the September 14th, it's our turn, and we turn over our mission to 18th Airborne Corps Engineer Battalion, the 20th Engineers. They take over. We had held that damn thing for like 41 days, 42 days, 24/7. Oh yeah. No, I know this is how it's terrible. We were glad to get on the airplane and get away from that thing.
Get some sleep finally.
Get some sleep. It was ridiculous, right? Because I want to take first 327's place and give them a break. No, hell no. So we're trying to get out ourselves while pushing everybody out. Anyway, it was what it was. So we land there in September. I think it was September the 14th or 15th. We land, and so now we have to start acclimatizing and getting ourselves prepared to go do whatever we're going to have to do. The initial mission, and let me back up just a little bit. There wasn't jack squat when we got there, right? There's part of the 82nd, the 101st, the 24th, and a Marine. Maybe I don't even know if they had the whole MEF there, the first MEF or first or second MEF. I don't think they had the whole MEF for it, right? The 24th was the only one that had tanks. They have one battalion of tanks. When you would see the reels of tanks getting off, it was the same damn unit.
It was different angles of the footage.
It was the same Pomka style. Oh yeah, how the tanks they're getting on over by boats. Yeah. Well, we have the physics of getting there, right? So we have the 82nd. The 82nd is going to they're going to stay at Dammam, as I remember, and protect the ports. Okay, the 24th doesn't have hardly anything over yet. So we the 101st is going to do the covering force. And what we would do was we would take a brigade, or maybe it was 2 brigades at a time, and go forward and provide. We're going to keep them out. Well, when you look at us, where are our tanks? That's right. We don't have anything. We don't have nothing but Humvees. And there, you look on the ORBAT, or the Order of Battle, against the unit on it would be like an armored division or a mech division. And it was
hey, this doesn't make sense, guys.
Oh my God. I would go to sleep every night, and I'm a Catholic, and I'm saying a rosary. Just, Lord, don't let them come tonight, right? Some other time, but not tonight. And so you had to figure out, our front was 25 kilometers across, or 20 kilometers across, and 20 kilometers deep. So it was like 400 square kilometers with 700 men. Okay. We had 18 tow vehicles. And so it was a ridiculously hard mission.
And for the listeners that don't, so a tow is a tubular launch, optically engaged, wire guided missile. It's basically a tank. Yeah, it's a tank killer.
I apologize. It's a tank killer. It'll shoot out to 3,500 meters, right? So that's about 3+ miles. And it would do a great bit of death and destruction on the enemy side. The problem is it was on a Humvee, which has no protection.
Correct, especially at that time frame. So the Humvees that a lot of people would associate today are up-armored Humvees.
Yeah, they'd been in the inventory maybe 4 or 5 years, right? And all we had plastic tops, right? So any type of artillery, that exploded, yeah, you're pretty much screwed. So we built bunkers, and not bunkers, but readouts to put them in there where they could fire. That was the covering force. The leadership challenges were extraordinary just because of the environment. There's two environments I personally would never want to fight in: the North Pole or the South Pole, and the Saudi Arabian desert, because you can't get away from it.
It's
Right?
austere.
It's it's 130 degrees. What are you gonna do about it? Nothing.
Nothing.
We have no electricity. We have no hard stand. We're living in tents. And again, I'm not telling stories just to tell stories, but I had a guy go unconscious in his cot. He sweated so much that we thought he was going to die.
Yeah.
We thought he was going to die. They had to put him in an ice bath. And 3 years ago, he called me and said, "You remember me?" Because he was going to put in a VA claim. He said, "You remember me?" I go, "Oh, hell yeah. We thought you were going to die." Yeah, I remember you. Right. Because
I almost died sleeping.
Exactly. And so you have this where you don't know what you don't know. I mean, if you're an Arab, you've been hanging around there forever. If you don't, you go outside. I think we'll do PT at 9 o'clock in the morning or 8. I go, "No, you're not.
Yeah.
You better do it when it's dark."
100%.
Because at 9 o'clock, we're going to go for the first 2 or 3 months. We just went inside the tent and waited till it got dusk.
Yeah, I had a similar experience when I was in Kuwait before we went into Iraq in 2003. So I'm like, oh yeah, we had the big circus tents, the whole thing.
Right. Yeah.
So at this point, you have your entire battalion, right, has now deployed, and you are starting to set in your defensive positions. And what country are you in at this specific point?
We're in Saudi Arabia.
Okay.
We're in northern Saudi Arabia. There's at the northern part of Saudi Arabia, there's this tap line road where it's an oil road that they bring oil up and down it. Well, we're on either side of it, right? So we were to be, and I hate to use the word speed bump, but the speed bump. We're going to slow them down if we can and let the 24th Division, which is behind us, engage, right? Which in theory is, well, that's all that was there, right? So we start, the division goes in August, September, October. There's 18th Airborne Corps. That's it. There's no heavy metal. The heavy metal is either 3rd Corps, and a corps is about 60,000, 70,000 troops in the United States, or there's 7th Corps, which is in Germany. Okay, which one's closer?
The Germans.
7th Corps.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, they're closer. But have they ever thought about fighting in the desert? Ask them. They go, hell no. They never thought about doing that. Why? Because their job was to hold off the Soviets.
Soviet deterrence, right.
Exactly. We're never going to do that. We're never going to do that until we do it.
Whoops.
Yeah. And so on November 8th, out comes the deployment order. 7th Corps coming up. Well, how long's that going to be?
Yeah.
They don't start getting there till January.
What?
Right? Oh, yeah. They got to get out of Germany, got to get all their crap, all that stuff. Right? So we're talking August, September, October, November, December, January. Mid-January, they start rolling in. So we're out there 6 months, right? Without any heavy armor, right? And so you talk about living life large. The 101st was the covering force at this whole time frame. We're rotating brigades up, and we're living in the desert, right? And you think, well, yeah, that's no. It's not like not now. There was nothing. Right? What was our daily resupply? MREs and water and fuel. That's it. You're not getting any hard stand. You're not getting any McDonald's sitting up next to you. None of that crap's coming to you. We were out where I don't even know any. I used to watch the Bedouins go by and go, damn, I'd like to live like them because they had a toilet. They got carpet. You think they got carpet. They got real meat. They'll kill a sheep, right? They'll kill a sheep. We'll eat the sheep. right? They got carpets in their tent. They got a Honda that must be air conditioned, right? And so we look at them and we're just, what's out there? Nothing. You're out there with nothing but the scorpion. Again, I sound dramatic when I talk about it, but and then you get a Newsweek and some censor had taken the girl there and colored in her arms and her legs so you couldn't see. All you could see was her face. I'm good. What are they? Are they trying to make us go stark, raving mad?
Yeah, right.
I mean, it's
before
just
they said it. Yeah, probably.
right.
So that brings up a really good point that I really enjoyed this aspect of the book. So you have your soldiers, your troops are living in absolute austerity, and one that I can recognize as being
Yep.
on the edge of Kuwait or the edge of Iraq before he went in. Um, so there was a lot of letters that started coming in. Can you
Right.
describe and kind of go into the story of is it Linda Patterson?
Linda Patterson. Okay, Miss Linda Patterson. She is an angel. She's going to go straight to heaven and sit next to God. She really is. Right. So give me a minute or two to tell her story. In 1968, her brother, Joe Artavia, was in Alpha Company 1st 327th. He had written home to her asking her city, San Mateo, California, which is right next to San Francisco.
Mhm.
And this is in 1968, if they would send us letters and maybe adopt Alpha Company, or they called it Abu Company. So Linda pushes it through San Mateo, and it happens. About 2 months later, Joe is killed in the Tet counteroffensive. Linda has all these medallions and all this. You have to know her. She's like a force of nature. She gets on a plane with $17 and goes to Saigon. How in the hell she got there? She didn't ask permission. She didn't do jack. I guess she got a pass. I don't know. But she got to Saigon. She knew nobody. And she said, I want to go. I want to go to see the 101st. So she ends up going to the 101st. They push her down to 1st 327th. And she goes down to Alpha Company, where her Joe's platoon leader, Steve Patterson, is her escort. Now you have to understand, Linda is quite attractive. I'll leave it at there. Extremely attractive. I'm just saying, right? And so Linda and Steve, he escorts her around. Steve was Joe Artavia's platoon leader. They both got wounded. Joe got killed at the same battle. So there's already a tie there of, you know what I'm saying? There's already this tie. And so eventually they get married. Okay. So Linda becomes a proponent when the Vietnam War was over in 1973. San Mateo would have, I believe, the only welcome home a parade. And that's a hell of a, you want to spit. You get so mad. But it was the only welcome home parade. Okay, fine. Fast forward to I think it was 1980. She has a parade where there's 50,000 people for the 101st. All right. Now here's the rest of the story. Fast forward to 1990. I get a call from her. I don't know her from Adam. I hear there's someone, right? I don't know her from Adam. I don't know. I didn't know the story either. When I'd been in Camel before, I'd been in 2nd 327th, no slack. I didn't know any of this stuff. So she relates the story to me. She asked me, do I need any assistance? I said, in a moment of inspiration, sure. I'm going to send you the battalion roster. So that's like 700 names. Can you help us out? She gets it. It's not that we get 1 or 2 pen pals per person. It's like 10. I bet I had 15 pen pals from San Mateo, right? So fast forward, when we land in Saudi Arabia, we got duffel bags full of pen pal stuff, right? So the division, the head person, the G1 says, what the hell is this all about? Said, I had more mail than the rest of the division combined. Right. And I go, well, I said, I don't know. It's this lady, the Linda Patterson in California. She's making, so he asked me if I wanted to, divide it up. I go, Hell no. I'm not gonna. I'm not. No, I've got 700 guys. So they supported us the whole time. And when the whole thing was over, we get invited on July 4th, 1991, to go out, and it was one of the top 5 moments of my life. We were treated like gods, and then we got to interact with the Vietnam guys, and she made life for us much easier. Even now, and I'm going to shut up on this, but in 2026, she has an organization she's been running for about every since the war on terror in 2001. It's called Americans Supporting Americans, and she has all this network of letters and support, not only for the Army, not only for the 101st, but from Air Force units, Marine units, that she's got cities to adopt those units, right? So anyway, it's just a tremendous story. She wrote a book called A Dove Among Eagles. The whole her story is just epic. It's epic. So anyway,
It's very good to see that Americans are coming forward to support Americans, and I'm a big fan of that. Those small moments, and this is what I like to convey to people, is regardless of people's understanding, belief, determination of what justification of the wars or whatever it may be, there
right.
still are Americans that are going forward, and those young men and women that go forward are leaving bits of themselves back home, and those small acts of kindness, of just taking a letter
Yeah.
or filling, we had kids who would do, little collages and stuff for us. Those things mattered to us because to me, and I can only speak for myself, it kind of reminded me that America was something worth fighting for.
Right.
And that we belong to something greater. And so I think that and it also provides a very good avenue for people who are unsure of how to help or how to
Yeah.
support, to say, at the end of the day, I'm going to help some young man or young woman on the ground who's living in a desert somewhere at this point, right? Feel a little bit more, connected to home. And so to, Jane Patterson and all the other people out there like Jane Patterson, thank you from the bottom of my
Yeah.
heart. And I'm sure, and I can see how much it resonated with you
Oh
enough to be
yeah.
able to
No.
provide, yeah, inside of the book.
I'll just mention when I took 100 plus myself, 101 folks out there, right? And so I got to meet up with one of my pen pals, young Genevieve Marhenke. I think she was 11. Now she's like 46 with kids. She still hits me. We still talk on Facebook, and her parents were wonderful too. But you think who you're supporting? You're supporting kids. They're 19, 20-year-old kids, right? Yeah, your lieutenants are 2021. And what you just said, it matters. That little diagram of a hand or the little deer soul. Right. No, I got it. And thank you. And again, yeah, why are we doing this? Yeah, for you folks.
Yeah.
And thanks for thinking about us. Yeah.
That's it, and that's it, and that provides almost armor of the soul, as you're going into,
Right.
what you're about to see, and so with that, let's continue so you guys are now so we're January timeframe,
Right.
January 1991?
91. Yep.
91. And so now we have the geopolitics are happening. So George H.W. Bush has issued the ultimatum for Saddam Hussein to withdraw his troops. And there's a specific timeline associated. Where are you guys at during this?
Okay. We're back in the covering force, right? And so we go back in mid-December. We had got our operation order, or the concept. The concept was we were going to do what the hell we were supposed to do. We were going to go deep. We were going to go. My brigade was going to go 100 miles deep, and then the next day, and we're going to set up a gas station. Then the next day, Third Brigade, and the following day, Second Brigade, they're going to go up and cut the Euphrates Valley. And I've told people that's the most audacious operational maneuver since Inchon. Yeah, it's just, what are we going to do? We're going to get behind them. Oh, yes, we are. Right. And I remember looking at the map, I'm going, and a lot of things hit me. One, my battalion's going first. Two, we're actually going to do this. And three, I didn't know where the hell we were because we're going to go 500 miles out. So we received that concept in December. In late December, we're back in the covering force because I remember Christmas Eve was melancholy for everybody because we're looking at the same stars that Jesus saw, and right, we're in that sector, right?
Yeah.
And so on January, I think it was the 15th, President Bush said, "Hey, you're going to have to pull out," and they're not. And there was a big debate in Congress. People forget about this. There was a big debate in Congress, and it wasn't sure the Senate was going to approve it, and it got approved by one senator. The authorization to, oh yeah, you didn't know that, right? Oh yeah, we're waiting because for us, we knew the only way we're going to go home is through the Iraqi army. We'd already come to that conclusion. In the thought of them leaving out us to rot, because that's what was going to happen. If they left us another 4 months, you're going to go nuts out there. Lawrence of Arabia couldn't wait that damn long.
Correct.
Right? So right around the 16th, the Senate votes, and I think it was one vote. I think it was Al Gore, to be honest, right? He went against most of his party and said, yep, I'm going to go authorize the force. So on January the 17th, we're in the we're up in the, and we know that night, that night of the 17th, all hell's gonna break loose. And I tell the troops, I don't tell the troops, I tell the officers, you go tell them, right? And I gave the pep talk. I said, you have to steel yourself, because things are going to go perhaps not in the way we think it's going to go. In it, and a lot of things happen that, we were able to overcome, right?
Yeah.
We weren't, like I say, we weren't stupid.
So if I'm not mistaken, the opening kind of gambit was the largest air campaign, I think, in our nation's history, right? And you guys got to kind of witness that.
Right. Well, the interesting part about it, the first shots of the air war were fired by the 101st Airborne Division. Yeah, right. And they had the Apaches, and I write in there about this guy Dick Cody. Dick Cody ultimately made 4-star. He's just like my sergeant major, just a complete badass. He really is, really a smart guy. But he knew and again, he is not going to get shook, and he's not gonna melt down, right? For a lot of reasons, he's just not going to do that. He's another hard-earned woodpecker.
Yeah,
guy.
hard-earned woodpecker lips, right?
Hard-earned woodpecker. So he's led in by Air Force paved lobes. They have the navigation skills. They lead them, and then Cody knocks out the early warning radar. He and his Apaches, they shot that place to hell. So whatever it was, in half an hour later, they're coming, and we're in our tent. We're right on the Iraqi border. We're in the tent. 2:00 in the morning, we hear them come over, and about 2:30, we hear the BBC. There's bombs. We're going, no, I bet there is, right? Right. So I want to say it was like 7,000 sorties that night, and I think 5 aircraft were knocked down. I think 5 or 6 were knocked down, which was a lot less than we thought. Right. And so for the next, all the way up to February the 24th, we would see them all the time. Right. I remember when the Battle of Kafchi went down, right, where the Marines got attacked. I was at brigade, and one of the brigade, my brigade liaison, Air Force liaison guy, had one of these J-Stars terminals. Right. And he was showing me where all the aircraft were getting vectored into Kafchi. I'm going, I bet they wish they hadn't attacked.
Yeah.
Right. So no,
they're
right.
Going to learn today.
Because the J-Stars was just coming in. Just, it was another one of the tools that, the Reagan buildup had brought in.
Very, very strong too. So let's go through the air assault plan. So also, air assault is something that is kind of a, not newer concept. I think that it was probably done different in Vietnam, but the transition of where air assault and what your specific role was going to be. I know we've touched on it a little bit, but can we go through what your, and also what's indicative of air assault versus a lot of the armor that's out there as well?
Right. Okay, fine. So the air assault concept really began a little bit in Korea, but primarily in Vietnam, right? Where we're going to use helicopters to get around the battlefield. And so in Vietnam, they had the Huey.
Mhm.
Huey, I think you could get 5 or 6 people in it.
Mhm.
Well, I guess it was in 1982, 81, the Black Hawk, the UH-60 starts coming in. Black Hawk can get 9 or 10. However, if you take the seats out, right, we're going to jam 14 or 15 troops.
There's always room for one more.
There's always right. So that's what they did. They took the seats out of the Blackhawks. So the 101st had an extraordinary number of lift assets. They had three Black Hawk battalions. I think they had like 30 plus Black Hawks in each one of the battalions. Then they had a Chinook battalion. And then I think they got Chinooks when we were going to do the air assault from other units, right? They added on other aviation assets, right? So the concept was we're going to use the 101st to vertically envelop somebody. We're going to cut their supply lines, right? And so when we land, we will have enough firepower from the Apaches and the Cobras. We had some Cobras, a Cobra battalion, Apache battalion. Any artillery that we bring in to hold off until we get relieved. And in our concept, we weren't going to get relieved for 2 days. It was going to be either the 82nd with the 6th French or the 24th. So
Okay.
that was the concept. My brigade, and I alluded to it, we were going to go 100 miles deep, land, set up a big circle, and then start flowing in aviation assets, fuel. We're going to bring in 100,000 gallons of fuel, right? And so what are we going to land? There are going to be 2 lifts. The first lift, we're going to bring in, it was about 250 troops to land, soldiers. And then the next lift, another 2. So of my 700 battalion, 700-man battalion, we're going to bring in 500 troops. There's going to be 4 battalions doing this, right? So in total, we're going to bring in initially 1,250 and then another 1,250. So by the time both of them, we've got 2,500. And in the center of it, we're going to put the gas station. And so our job was to protect the gas station from what we knew was going to come from the west, which was the people getting pushed out by the French in the 82nd. They're going to come. Where they got to come? They're going to come in our direction.
I love the line here. I was cackling when you wrote this line because you're having the conversation with you're kind of getting your initial op order. And you're like, one was, where the hell are we? Good grief, we're going to air assault. Damn, we're going in first. And then Colonel Hill, perhaps noticing I was perplexed and red-faced, asked me, Frank, what do you think? I answered with the weakest, most unenthusiastic, and barely audible hooah ever uttered by an American soldier.
I was, if I had any cool, I completely lost my cool. Because when the map came up, I'm going, because what we're going to do, we're going to go by C-130 in convoy 500 miles to the west. So I'm looking at the map and I'm thinking, I'm the only guy in here that doesn't know where the hell we're at. I'm looking at all right, and because I was the youngest of the battalion commanders.
Oh.
Well, I look, when you see my picture, I look like a freaking Boy Scout. Right, so I'm thinking I'm out of my league. I don't know where, and then I see those big arrows. All this time, I had thought we were going to go in by convoy. We were going to follow. 7th Corps was here now, or going to come. We'll just follow 7th Corps. They'll just kick shit out of everybody, and we're just going to roll in. It didn't. We're going to actually do this air assault stuff. And here's the thing: nobody knew if that was going to work. Right? You've got helicopters, which is like a flying truck, running around with these. I can't remember. Their air defense missiles and all those ZSUs and ZPUs. Yeah. Can we do that? Well, we're going to find out it's very
Yeah.
difficult to do that, right? It was a Grail, GRA, that was there, and then
Oh, yeah.
that's what it was. In the last thing was, I look up there and I see who's going. I'm going first. You're shitting me, right? I'm thinking, can't the Rangers do this? Can't the 82nd do this? Why? On the first day, my unit is the northernmost CENTCOM unit. There's nobody north of me.
Oh, I
Right.
love
And
that.
I'm going, how in the hell did I get into my, and so that's when he asked the question. Well, what do you think? And you didn't want to say, well, I think this is just a bullshit plan. No, and I go with hua. And that's,
I love
that all happened.
I love
And it
that.
all happened. It all happened within about a 60-second time frame too. Right.
There's all this almost like a dread and panic mixed in, and then someone wants to ask. You haven't even had a chance to steel yourself. Like, what do you think? You're like, let's do it. Hua.
let's do it. Yeah, let's do it.
Oh, that's fantastic. So, okay, here's where the things start to get interesting as far as battle plans kind of go. Now, already you guys are kind of doing something that is relatively novel. You're flying in, you're already austere,
Yeah.
you're going to be pretty isolated. And there's a specific plan that you guys have. So, 48 hours before the air assault, two young intel analysts, 26 and 29 years old, tell you that division intel is wrong. You're the battalion commander. The brigade commander doesn't agree. Can you walk me through that moment and through
Sure.
that scenario?
Yeah. Yeah. I'm gonna back to early November.
Mhm.
And there came a magazine out that had on it Vietnam Diaries. And the guy that wrote it was Joe Galloway, right? Of We Were Soldiers Once, and young Galloway. This was before he wrote the book, before he got more. And then he told the Battle of the Ai Drang. Somebody put it on my cot. So I read it and I didn't get panicked, but I'm going, I don't like. So I brought in my company commanders and Delgado in my staff. And I said, we're not going to do this. I said, we're not going to land on top of something. Well, okay, fine. So fast forward. Delgado is knee deep, right? He's such a smart guy. He really is a smart guy. Him and Gonzalez, they're smart guys. In Gonzalez, we had just got the coordinates of where we're going to land. In our northernmost company, which was Alpha Company or Abu Company, right? There were entrenchments there. Trench line, a big trench line. It was a mile-long trench line, right? And unbeknownst to me, a freaking big hill that didn't show up on the map. Didn't show up on the map.
It turns out.
No, it didn't. I got the map. I go, where the hell would I figure this out that there's
I
a big...
totally chuckled at that part, by the way. I was like, yeah, that makes sense.
I didn't know that. Right. So Gonzalez, he's really smart. He's a thinking soldier. He starts going through all the different things that have come up over the last, like a month, maybe a month. Yeah, let's see. Last month. And he does the templating of where units should be using Soviet doctrine, and the Iraqis use Soviet doctrine, right? And he comes up with, there's somebody there in that, quote, unoccupied trench line. So he redoes it. He gets it again. So he goes and tells Delgado. And Delgado goes, all right, see me what you got. So they both go over it again 2 or 3 times. All right. So now we get to my staff. These guys are professional soldiers, Major Chappell, Major Dempsey, and Sergeant Major Riley. So they brief them. They go through it. Same thing. There's somebody there. So now we get to moral courage. 48 hours before. I'm the lead unit. So if I change anything, it's going to affect everything, right? And I just found out a day ago that people didn't know we changed the landing zone. I just found out there was damn Lieutenant Colonel. He says, we didn't know that was the problem. Yeah. And all this crap we're going to land, all this is going to be flying, is going to be done at dark. So they wake me up. It's like 10:30. I'd already gone to sleep because we got no electricity. Dark and hell.
What else are you going to do? Yeah.
What else going to do? And in 48 hours, we're going to go up. I don't know when I'll ever sleep again. Right. So Gonzalez comes in, the young sergeant. He's 26. Delgado's 29. There's kids. Sir, you need to get up. And so when somebody wakes up the battalion commander, he's asleep. Somebody better be dead or about to be dead, right? Because and I'm going, all right, well, this
Two things are happening right now. Someone's dead or someone's going to be dead.
Someone's going to be dead. So you're right, because you just don't do that, right? So they wake me up. Again, moral courage, right? And again, we go back to command culture. They knew what I wasn't going to flame on them, right? No fear. So I walk in there and I looked at them and I initially thought my mother had died, because there ain't no joking. These guys we got our game face on. So Delgado brings me up. He lets Sergeant Gonzalez brief me. I look at it and Sergeant Major Riley goes, "Hey, Commander, you need to do something about this." When he says it, right, the Vietnam vet with 3 tours. Oh,
the hairs in the back of his neck.
Oh yeah, no. So we're gonna do something. So I told him, go get Private Bruce Ditfield. He was my driver. Tell him bring the Humvee around. I'm gonna take Tom Dempsey, the S3, and Jose Delgado, the
S2.
The S2.
Mm-hmm.
So we go. It's about 20 kilometers. I get there to brigade headquarters. And Colonel Hill is up, as are his 2 staff guys, the S3 and the S2.
So it's got to be like midnight, maybe?
It's about 11 o'clock.
Yeah.
I did, let me put it this way. After they told me all that shit, it didn't take me a minute. Go get the Humvee. I'm going now.
Bad news doesn't get better with time.
Oh, no. We got to do it. We got to do this now. 48 hours, we're landing. Right? Or whatever it was, we're taking off about that time. So anyway, I go up there and I have Delgado brief them, and I could see from the body language and their looks at me, it ain't happening, right? I'm not moving. They're looking at me like you're an idiot, and Delgado is a young captain. You don't know. We've got all this reconnaissance, and somebody had gone and landed up there and said they had landed. In reality, again, this is 35. They went to the wrong place. They landed, and I'll just leave it at that. I'll just leave it at that. I don't want to go anywhere with it. But they landed in the wrong freaking place, right? So they had checked something out, and there was nobody there, but it's the wrong damn place, right? So we spiel it, and as it goes on, I start using a little profanity. And then all this time, Delgado, who I think is intel god, is telling me, "Sir, they're there. They're there." And so I go on a rant, and the rant is epic, right? There's like 15 people in the tent. When I'm through with the rant, there's me and Tom Hill, brigade commander. Ain't nobody else there. Everybody's walked out.
They got like, this is a private conversation.
Right? They didn't want to be a part of the court martial that was coming, because I was totally disrespectful. I called in the paternity into question of every person in there. If there was a video, a YouTube of a person professionally falling on a sword, and I knew what I was doing. I fell on the sword. I just did. I didn't know where else to go, right? So Colonel Hill, he's looking the staff. There's nobody there, right? It's unoccupied. You're causing trouble. That's what they're thinking. I know what they're thinking. I'm causing trouble. I don't know. Maybe you're too not man enough, right?
Maybe you're not cut out for this, right? Maybe you're scared.
Maybe you're coward.
Fabricating.
All the stuff, right? And so I came to the point where, okay, I go, Roger. And so I walk out to the Humvee. That's the other thing. I threw my helmet at Hill's feet. Again, he was very gracious in not relieving me, but I threw it right at his feet, right? And then I go outside and throw it again against the Humvee, right? And Delgado said it was, elegantly he put it was profanity laced, right?
Yeah, I got that.
So we go back, and it's now about midnight. I go back and tell everybody they're not changing it. So that night, I don't know what the hell I was doing. I was trying to figure out what we could do. In the scheme of things, there wasn't anything, right? Because of our sector, I have a sector that's 15 kilometers long. The closest anybody I have to that hill, if my Alpha company got got in trouble, it was 5 kilometers away, and everybody is loaded down with chemical gear and water. We're not going anywhere. We're
So for
just
clarification, your landing zone is supposed to be unoccupied. They have Hire has assessed that this trench line is not, in fact, an occupied trench line.
exactly.
And your intel analysis or Captain Delgado's intel analysis says that this is very much occupied. And
Very
so I
much.
think that the implications of that is that you would be flying in relatively unprotected, very vulnerable through a landing sequence into potential ZSU 23 TAC 4s, anti-aircraft munitions,
Right.
all
And
of it,
they
lambs to slaughter.
in their defense, they had not seen anything there. And so I'll just go ahead and tell you why right here. The reason why is there was a hill, and the Iraqis were in the hill, not beside it, not on it. They had dug 50 caves. Each one of the caves could handle 6 or 8. They had put all of them. There's 300 and ultimately going to be 344 guys we captured. All their ammunition, 8 tons of ammunition, 700 and some odd RPG rounds, 500 and some odd 82 millimeter mortar rounds. All the stuff was inside the hill, not on it, not around it. So what we're going to do is we're landing where the coordinates are. We're landing on it because it's unoccupied. If we had landed, and again I'll talk a little bit. If we had landed, we're not going to make it. They have 4 ZPU-4s there. We're not going to make it. Those 6 helicopters, there were 6 Black Hawks. Each one had 18, 108. They're not going to make. That's my view.
So as a
Right.
commander, you must have been, I was about to say, like, could you imagine the carnage? Well, of course you could. You're the commander, right?
Well,
And like you could imagine trying to get a. I mean,
here's the thing, because nobody saw anything forever till they surrendered. I thought there was maybe 30 guys there. Why would I think otherwise? Everybody is telling me there's
344.
Exactly. Right. Yeah. And so when I saw, what was in the white flags, I'd have killed somebody. Right. I'm going, how could this, we're about to, how do you even think about that?
So
right?
take me through that kind of decision matrix for you. So now
Okay.
you have done what you're supposed to. This is a great, again, this is when we gloss over these moments and
Right.
as historians, right, as military veterans, we tend to look back and look at our past with a form of nostalgia, almost
Right.
glossing over these potential, very near misses. Take me through the thought process that you're going through when you have done what you have asked your subordinates to do, which is advocate to you and tell you the truth, and then you trust them because they are a professional soldier. You have now done the same thing to your higher command, and you have asked for their professional trust in your professional competence, and they have said, kick rocks, continue with the plan. What goes through your mind through this? How do you navigate this?
Yeah, well, it's showtime. And so whatever happens, he can fire me, and then he'll just tell the next guy, here's the plan. I thought, and I wrote in the book, I thought a minute, we'll put it in writing. And then I go, that's stupid. It's writing. It's already in the op order, right? So I just went home and I go, well, if you got to act like a man on this, right? So I'm trying to go through the things. I don't come up with anything, right, that I can do, right? So I'm just going to act like a man. I'm going to lead from the front, and we're going to get on with it. Maybe they're right. Maybe they're right. Then again, maybe they're wrong, right? And so as a professional soldier, you've got 2 choices. Do what he says, or say, I'm not going to do what you say, get court-martialed for it, right? And then what happens to my kiddos?
That's tough. That's tough. It's a tough place to be. And that is the true burden of command, right? Is you are.
Yeah, you're not going to get everything you want. And right, and I wanted, hey, to move the dang LZ back a little bit, and he said no. Well, guess what? He's in charge. I'm not. He said no, so I've got to make the best of it. So if somebody says, well, you could, okay, I'm just telling you, right where I was with a rock in a hard place. When I came back, I told everybody, and of course it was gloomy. It says in the book, Gonzalez he didn't know what to do, right? Because he went through everything, and then they're saying your stuff is not good enough. Okay, it's not good enough. It's all right. We'll go with the original plan, and we'll see what we can do with it.
This episode is brought to you by Shopify. One thing that comes up over and over on this show: guys who spent years in uniform get out, and the next fight is building something of their own. And almost every time, the hard part isn't the idea, it's everything around it. Building a site, figuring out payments, all the stuff that has nothing to do with why they wanted to start in the first place. That's the gap that Shopify fills. Their templates and AI tools get a site up fast, no coding required, so it actually looks real from day one, not like something half-built. Checkout is built to convert, and returning customers can check out in a single click. And if you get stuck, Shopify's built-in AI assistant, Sidekick, is there to help you troubleshoot and keep moving instead of stalling out. Shopify runs everything from Mattel and Gymshark down to someone launching their very first store this week. All you need is the idea. Shopify handles the rest. Start your free trial at shopify.com/combat story. That's shopify.com/combat story. And now, back to our show.
So how did you, I would say, ensure? So there's a natural thing of like, okay, we trust the plan, that we have to follow the plan. We're trusting our intelligence. How did you kind of thread the needle or mitigate the risk?
I talked to Alpha Company. I think I did, right, and told them, hey, it might be contact. We again, it's funny now. It wasn't funny at the time. We had no idea that there were that many damn people there. We just didn't. If I'd have known that, I'd have probably just passed out. Right? right. You're right. When you got to that, I mean, again, not that I'm pissed now, but I get to sometimes I get a little bit angry, right? Because it was such a it was so grievous, right? And you weren't going to let me move it. Exactly what I know. Well, we're professionals. They can know I'm going to bump back 2 kilometers.
Give me a click. Give me 2 clicks.
Yeah. Just give me something. Just don't put me on the damn, because that's where we're landing on it, not near it. We're landing on it. That's and again, you look at it from 2020. We're not going to. Those kids are not going to make it. We're not going to make it.
So now take me through, what is it? G hour? Is that
it's G day. G day. Okay, fine. Right. So it's G minus, I guess it's G minus 1. He calls me. He doesn't call me. I think it was the Brigade 3. He calls me and say, you can move it back 2 kilometers. Okay, I got
a little bit of conviction there, right?
Right. And it was the brigade commander who made the decision. I want to give him all the credit where he made the decision, because again, I've talked to Cody, the 4-star. He says, you know what you're asking? I said, I know I do. I said I was asking for the plan that had already been briefed, that was locked and cocked. Everybody knew it was. We're going to do this. We're going to go. This one guy, Hancock, he wants to move back 2 kilometers. Right.
Which, for anyone, like, the armchairs that we get from a lot of things, is, well, why wouldn't they? Blah, blah, blah. The answer is that we couldn't. It just wasn't possible.
There was 300 helicopters in the air.
The logistics. The logistics.
Well, it's not it's the coordination of where the hell you're at, right? So he says, okay, you can move it back. So I tell Alpha Company, you're going to land here. Here's your new coordinates. For us, it was like, okay, fine. And again, the brigade sergeant major, I think he had a big to deal, because he had been in Vietnam. He'd done 100 of these damn things. Sergeant Major Nichols, and he was very much, as I understand it, right. And I never did really find out who made the compelling argument, but it might have been Nichols. We do this all the time. Let's move it back just in case. Suppose Hancock's right, is the way Sergeant Major Nichols always put it. Suppose he's right. Okay, so we got to move it back. So we go. I didn't put I don't know if I put it in the book. I might have put it in the book. But my last visit, I go that afternoon, and the Brigade S2 pulls me aside and says, Colonel Hancock, you got nothing to worry about. There's nobody there. So even up to the time we're getting on the helicopter that night, he believed there was nobody there. Okay. I hope you're right. Yeah, no.
I would love to be wrong around. It's like, I guess it's like worst case scenario, I'm wrong, and we land 2 kilometers,
Oh,
2
no.
kilometers
Oh.
south, and my boys got to walk. But
No.
what's the worst case scenario if I'm right and
Well,
we land at the wrong LZ?
We're going to go to the worst case scenario real quick, right? So he tells me that. I go, okay, fine. But I still got to move it back. So you fast forward to that night. We're supposed to leave, fly at 5 o'clock in the morning. We're going to hit at 6. And Dick
just
Cody,
before the sun's coming up, right?
Oh yeah, we're gonna hit in the dark. We'll have our nods on. We own the night, except we don't. We have a sandstorm come in, and it's one of these biblical sandstorms, right? With shit's going all over the place. Cody, the Apache battalion commander, he had been up since 2 o'clock doing the route recon. He had gone all the way up, come back, got more gas, went up, come back. One of his OH-58s plowed in, right, from the wind and the sand, and he goes, we can't go. We can't go at 5. Let's go at 6. So he tells General P, the division commander, hey, you got to push it back. So they push it back to 6. 6 comes. It's still too windy. We can't go. We're going to go at 7. And we're going, shit. We're going to go in the night.
We're
going to fly
our element of surprise. We lose the element.
Lose everything.
Lose
everything. We're all going to go, all whatever number, 150, 200, 300 damn helicopter. We're all going to go in the daylight. All right, whatever. Right. So we're waiting, and then we get time. The helicopters, right? And again, the Black Hawk is a wonderful, wonderful machine, but there was so much on it that all the Black Hawks had to do power checks. Some of them, Alpha Company had one that was Ken Russell was redlining, and the pilot had, brass, says, yeah, well, we're going anyway. Okay. Right. I mean, it's showtime, and it was just showtime, right? Those aviators, God made archangels, and then he made Army aviators.
I love
right.
that.
They are. They're just superior soldiers, trained. They just really are, right? The Black Hawk guys, just right. They're just wonderful people, right? And we had 5th of the 101, and they were just legitimate badasses. So we load on, we all do our power checks, and then we go. 2 things kind of in my mind. One, I had told I wanted all the doors shut because I was afraid like hell somebody's going to fall out, right? Because we're literally Delgado is I'm sitting between somebody's legs. He's sitting between my legs. I'm glad I'm, like I am. I didn't get excited or nothing. Right? We're going, right. It was crazy, right? People are all over. We're not going to assault out. We're going to roll out, right? Because we have our chemical gear too, and we have an extra 5 pounds of or 5 gallons of water, and then we got all these pickets and overhead. There's no more space, and there's no more weight we can put on.
You guys are like the Beverly Hillbillies flying in.
Exactly. We are. We're and at the same time, speaking of the Beverly Hillbillies, our convoy, and we have a convoy that's going to use a goat trail, right? And how big is this convoy? It's 700 vehicles. We're going to go 100 miles on a goat trail through the desert. Right, and again, they look like the Beverly Hillbillies. Right, there were Humvees,
trucks, things everywhere.
Exactly, tires blown, axles that collapsed. It was just Mad Max under the Thunderdome. That was the other one. So they're going to start, and they're going to link up with us in 2 days. Right. So when we pick up, this was the second thing about the assault. We go up maybe 15 feet. I'm going, you're kidding me. We're going to go 100 miles. Yep, that's the way we're going to go. Right, we're going to go under the radar signature. So we go up, maybe 20 feet.
Are you
Right?
so this
But
is
that
what aviators call nap of the earth, right?
nap of the earth,
Nap of the earth. So they stay underneath radar, but they're flying. There is zero room for error when you
zero.
are.
There's
Yeah.
zero, right? And again, at this time, it's a leap of faith for everybody. This has never been done. Sure as hell hadn't been done in the daylight, right? So here we go, 100 miles. We're going to go to ours is about 100 miles, our northernmost, and then we land. We're basically all coming out. There's great descriptions of the different what happened. I'm laying on top of a piece of plywood that we're going to make overhead cover. Everybody's laying on equipment, legs out, hands out. So it was ridiculous. It was, but anyway, we're laying on top of all the shit because you don't want it to go up into the rotor and crash the aircraft, right? Right. So we're landing. They take off, and then I hear heavy fire, and I'm going, that's not an Apache. And I look up, and it looks like Armageddon on that hill, and I'm with the second company. So I'm about 7 kilometers from this hill, or about 4 miles. And it's nothing. It's like a billiard table. It's nothing but flat. There's no trees, nothing, right? And I see this hill. There are red tracers going down. That is our Apaches. And then there are green tracers coming back up. And that is Iraqis. I didn't know what the hell a green tracer was, right? Somebody want to tell me, oh, that's the bad guy, right?
Yeah.
So within 5 minutes, I get my first radio call. It is from somebody, I think it was Brigade, telling me that an Apache had been shot down. In my world where I'd come on, the late 1980s, and the Apaches never got shot down because they were
in all of the war games, they're so advanced.
No Apaches get shot down. They're like a death machine, indestructible. They're the Death Star. And the first shit I hear is got shot down, right? And so I'm watching it. I watch Cody. Cody almost doesn't become a 4-star, right? He's pulling it, and the tracers are going right by his tail. He has a great story in there of his wingman coming along and popping that ZPU with
Hellfire.
With a Hellfire,
Yeah.
right? And then there were Cobras that were coming in. They were, because the Apaches were out of gas.
So
Right.
I had a question on this. So the Cobras, did the Army fly Cobras? Because I thought that was a Marine platform.
No, we had not completely transitioned. Right. The Marines, I think, had the Super Cobras.
Yeah.
We had a battalion of Cobras.
I
And
did
they
not
came
know
in
that. That's cool.
Oh, yeah. Third of the 101. They came in when the Apaches pulled off, the Cobras came in. And the Cobras, they stayed for a long time, right? The Apaches went back to get the second lift. And at this time, nobody knew what was up there, right? Nobody knows what's up there. I don't know what I'm thinking. Maybe there's some type of a platoon up there, 30 or 40 people. Because how could they not be seen, right? And so we're landing, and who's next to me? The closest battalion was somewhere between 20 and 25 kilometers away. So I'm not going to get any help.
Yeah. Cavalry's not coming.
The cavalry is not coming. So I have with me, I have no artillery, because this was supposed to be a cold landing zone. There is no artillery. I have no close air support.
Super
All I
exposed.
have, oh yeah, the only thing I have is the Apaches, right? and the Cobras, and they're keeping these guys. If you look at the topography of it, it's a hill, and they had in the book it's in there. They had a trench line, right? They couldn't get in the trench line because they're going to get shot by the Cobras or the Apaches, right? So I have next to me, I have my fire support officer, which is the artillery, Jerome Hawkins. And then I have the baddest and Hawkins was a great guy too, but I had the baddest of Air Force officers. He's the F4. If Tom Cruise was a liaison officer, I had him. The guy named Bill. Oh yeah. No, he was kind of a smart, and he was smart, but more than he was competent. So he knew what he was doing. So my initial thought was, I'm not getting artillery. I landed 8. I'm not getting artillery till 9 o'clock. Right, that's when the artillery is scheduled to come, and I think brigade gave me a battery a little bit earlier, but not much. So I'm looking to him, Reister, and again, this is a great story too. Right, they are all great since
They're
I'm
great
telling them,
stories.
but
Great
this is a great
stories.
story. So Reister, we'd been there about 40 minutes. The Apaches had moved away. The Cobras are still there, and they're taking turns of coming in and playing tag with these guys. He says, bombs, I got boss. Or boss, I've got bombs. The
Right.
other way around.
Yeah.
Boss, I got bombs. Oh, okay, fine. Right. And so it was 2 F-16s.
Are you still in flight?
Oh, no, I'm landed.
Oh, you're landed at this point. Okay.
I'm at the ground, and I'm going to try to bring in firepower. Because I had told, when we left, I told all the company commanders, before I engage with you, I will have used every freaking bomb, mortar round, artillery piece,
Spitball,
everything.
Right, anything.
Right. So what my thought was, well, I'm an American fighting man, and I got technology. I'm going to use some of that stuff, and I'm going to blow that hill up. Okay, so I have 2 F-16s. Each one of them had 2 2,000-pound bombs. I'd never seen this done either. But they're coming in. They will, if you've ever seen the second Top Gun movie, that they come into that dive angle, oh shit, right? So in the conversation, the guy that was the division ALO, I guess it was the division ALO, wanted to Air Force liaison officer wanted to know if I could see the enemy. So before I answered, because Reister he wanted to talk to the commander, me, he jumped in front of me, put his nose right next to my nose and says, if you tell him you can't see him, you're not going to get the aircraft.
You can't get the bomb.
Yeah, I'm not going to get the bomb. Okay, I went to West Point, duty honor country. What's right? Oh yeah, right. I'm an honor rep. I was an honor rep up there, right? I'm going right. No, I mean you again. It's a conundrum, right? It's kind of a. Well, are you going to strict? Can you see him? Well, I see something, and it's a green tracer. So I tell him, yeah, we can see him. So we get it. So the F-16s come in, they roll in and drop them. By the time they drop them, we now get the artillery, and we start, and it's for the next hour. We hit them with artillery, then we bring back in the attack guys, and boom, boom, boom. And guess what? They're not giving up, right? The assumption was they'll fold. They always fold. What we did not know, and what we found out in interrogation, is that there was a political officer up there. And where they were at was situated that this was going to be the location where they ambushed the French. And if they gave up, then they're going to harm their families. Republican Guard. We got that from 2 of them. One was the battalion commander said us, and then there was a senior NCO the next day who told us that. Oh yeah, we had been warned if we gave up. Okay, so it's now 10 o'clock, 10:15, 10:20, and we get 2 A-10s.
What a beautiful aircraft, by the way.
It's trend. Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
The Air Force doesn't like it because it's not beautiful. The Army loves it because it does everything that we want.
I don't know how the A-10s don't get more credit than they do, because every single service member that's seen an A-10 in action goes, angels on our shoulders. Absolutely.
I want an A-10. So I knew it was A-10. So he bored holes up in the air until we got ready, got all the helicopters, and then he came. Each one of them had 6 500-pound bombs, right? So they hit at right around 10:20. We hit the command center, we think, and after I see that interrogation, right? 10:30 rolls around, nothing. 10:37, my scout platoon leader says, there are flags. And then he yells, there are a lot of flags. So, and I'll just, when I heard that's when the blood went up to my eyeballs again. It said, I'm going to kill somebody when this is done with. So
It's
you
not
want me
that
to
you
do
were right, it's that they were so egregiously wrong and were
wrong.
unwilling to come off of that
Yeah.
literal hill, right, in that, in that dialogue that would have.
Again, Colonel Hill, to his credit, gave me some leeway as a battalion commander and says, I'll go with you, right? He overrode his staff guys and he went with a kind of young looking battalion commander over here, should have been in a Boy Scout troop, right? Right. And so it's showtime. And so now you have to go get a surrender. And exactly when do they tell you how to do that? I don't know.
Yeah.
How do you get a surrender? So Colonel Hill at this time had cut to me a UH-1. So I have something to go to the 7 kilometers up there and go talk. So I get there, my Al Gill, who was one of my TOW Delta company commanders, he was there, and then I go up, and so I've got Tom Evans, who is my chemical officer, and I've got my interpreter, and I'm walking up the guy. I haven't a damn clue. What am I supposed to say to him? All these things are going through my mind. Do I shake hands, say good game? That went through. Yeah, glad to accept your surrender. And then I realized, one, I don't know what's up here. Two, there was another location. With about 30 guys, a logistics site that we had to go clear out. And three, this son of a bitch might have booby-trapped everything. Yep. So I go, it was like 5 feet away. I go, I'm just going to be a hard. So I tell the guy, the interpreter, tell him if he doesn't surrender everybody right now, I'm going to bring back the aircraft and helicopters and kill everybody. Right? I don't know if I wasn't. That's not me, and I don't mean to be dramatic, but that's what I told the guy, because I must have looked like some type of vision of hell, right? Because from them, all of a sudden he has 250 and then 500 guys coming right at him.
And then you flew in on a helicopter, right? This is, yeah.
Right. We're landing right at his doorstep. What we didn't want to tell him is we didn't know you were here. We thought somebody might be here. Sure as hell not 344 of you, right? But he can read the book, right? He can read the book, right? But we didn't know that. But it looked like to them we were coming for them, when in fact what we were supposed to do is just go out and be in the defense. So he said, yes, I'll do that. Then for some reason he wanted his wallet, and I go, okay, fine, I'll give you your wallet, but you have to go through for all if you left any mines.
Yes.
IEDs.
Very
right?
real. A very real concern.
Very all right. Yeah, no, we're just going to do that. So we take care of that, and now we have to go and get the logistics site, right? So let me just back up one thing, and I want to give them credit. It was my Delta company and my scouts. When the flags came up, we were a good 3 kilometers away, and there had already been a false surrender where they had said they surrendered. This was before the war had started, and then they shot at Americans. So what I did, I go, time is of the essence. I put my scout platoon on top of the hoods. Well, okay, fine. I'm just saying, you got to do what you want. I remember talking to Brian Bedell about it. To put them on top of them.
The 101st Airborne Beverly Hillbillies.
Beverly Hillbillies, right? And so they said they were the Humvee's reactive armor. Right. So they go first. Gil gets there first with his tow vehicles. He has maybe 10 vehicles, maybe. I don't know if there was that many. And it put scouts on, and they go up there, and then Alpha Company, which was coming in from the west, finally got on top of it. And so now we're going to go out to get the logistics site. So the same scouts, the same Humvees. We take the battalion commander, put him in a Humvee with a bullhorn. We go out there, and we're going to get the second surrender. So he gets on the bullhorn and they surrender. And this is where you're again, this is true. I put it in the book. People that were there knew this. There was 30 or 40 of them. So we have to search, seize,
Say safeguard and tag.
attack, all that shit.
5 S's in a T. We learned that from
T,
you
bro.
guys.
Oh, okay, fine, good. Right, so we got zip ties. We're going to zip them, and we didn't have enough people. So I have to get out and guard a guy. So, and I put it in the book, right? I have a pistol that shoots 1 round. It was a malfunctioning. And I'm going, ain't this a bitch? Right? I'm sitting here guarding this guy, Captain Lee, who was the signal guy. Well, I mean, we just don't have anybody, right? The rest of the battalion is 8, 9, 10 kilometers to the south of us, right? And we're just right here at this place. We got maybe 15 guys guarding 40 or whatever the hell he had, right? And so I'm guarding a guy with my pistol that shot 1 round into the jam. And I'm going, I can't believe this. This is how I go to war. So that's that story, right? And again, it's like, no, it didn't happen that way. And I go, no, it did happen that way.
Truth
And
is stranger than fiction. Yeah.
Truth is much stranger than fiction. So here's these other guys talking about it. So anyway, that's the surrender.
So I love this part. And I think, again, not to be too congratulatory, but I am a big fan of your leadership style. I'm a big fan of what it looks like is the ethos that you were able to promulgate through the battalion. I'm going to read this section here, and this is from Second Lieutenant Mike Hubner.
Hubner, yeah.
And he says this: early as we started searching the POWs, I also have a memory of the scouts, one being First Lieutenant Bettel, their platoon leader, escorting a couple of Iraqis' key leadership, one being their battalion commander. I remember being told these officers had been searched. I remember thinking segregate and noticed that First Lieutenant Bettel escorted their commander as we would in military courtesy, with a higher ranking officer to his right. I remember instinctively saluting their commander. I remember him saluting back as well. I hope I wasn't aiding the enemy, but I wanted to show him that we were a professional, disciplined military with high standards. Tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah, no. So Hubner, and I write about him in there, was just a great officer. And so while we were on top there, and I'll get to that point, while we were on top, I was trying to get everybody to hurry up. And he got in my grill. I mean, he got right in my face. He goes, Colonel, we got to do this right. We can't. And I go, okay, because I had read a book called Platoon Leader about a guy, Jim McDonough, wrote about his experience as a platoon leader in Vietnam. And he says one of the things the Russian or the North Vietnamese did, you capture their position, they call in artillery. Oh, so I was trying to hustle him up, and he goes, "No, we've got to do this right." So he does that. That whole thing, you can be as proud of what we did with those prisoners. We weren't supposed to have any prisoners. We weren't equipped to have it. No, we weren't. I mean, we were supposed to be out there hanging out, looking to the west. Now we're in this major frickin' battle. 344 prisoners.
Apache shot down, right?
Apache shot down. We had about, 30 or 40 wounded. These are guys that are bleeding out of their nose, bleeding out of can't walk and all this stuff, and we're taking care of them. They don't have food. We give them ours, right? We give them our MRE. We didn't make sure they didn't get any pork. I know that sounds trivial, but that's who we are. I mean, that's who we are. We're Americans, right? No, George Washington did the same thing. He took care of the British prisoners, right? So that's who we are, right? I'll just caveat on that. That's hard too, right? Because I've been just trying to kill you, and I'm still pissed.
I'm still mad, damn it. You shot back at me.
You shot back, tried to kill us too. And now all of a sudden you have to break. You have to break, right? And then take care of them, right? Because you just got to do that, right? Because it's just freaking right, the right thing to do. But Hubner and Russell, his company commander, they showed great poise, professionalism, humanity. Well, anything you want to say, they showed it, right? Because we didn't have to, right? But we did because it was the right thing to do. And we had been trained to do that. And we had talked, that's just part of who we are.
I absolutely love that. I absolutely love that.
Just
So take me through the next, couple of days, because now you guys are in the you guys are
yeah,
establishing a foothold, establishing, as you
right.
said, the gas station. You've had this hugely kinetic engagement. Take me through the next, few days of the operation itself.
Right. So what the 101st was going to do the next day, they're going to take a third brigade. Colonel Clark, his brigade is going to go and they're going to resupply. So at our location. So there's a few things that have to happen. One, we got to get the aviation fuel in, right? So the aviation fuel is on the convoy. So we're waiting to do a link up with the convoy. For us personally, we we I'll get we had to take care of these prisoners, right? And there's a thing in there about marching them down that the next day, the 25th, and I get down there and they go, "Well, we can't handle them," and I'm going, "Well, you're going to have to."
We don't have any
'Cause
other options. Yeah.
and we're not going to take them back with you. So they eventually got that, and then we had to expand out our perimeter. We had to take care of collecting all the ammunition and weapon. We started that process. That day, there was where that logistics site, we had not completely cleared that. So in one of we were told we had to go clear it.
Mm-hmm.
And me and the brigade commander hooked horns again because I'm thinking, exactly, why do I have to go do that? And in his defense, it was nearer me, but that unit that was closest to them, that's where I had my prisoners. I have like 100 guys up there guarding 344. I have where's the there are no Blackhawks. There are no Blackhawks. They're all carrying 3rd Brigade in about another 3 or 4 hours. So I'm there talking to him, and he's giving me kind of a hard time of, well, you're not up to it, or shit like that. And so again, I go, and I'm most of the time I'm a nice guy, but I wasn't. And I go, okay, fine, I'll take care of it. And so I get in the Huey, and I told I had like 4 guys. I said, we're going to go clear that supply dump up there. So when we landed, we got out and we had like 5 of us. I'm going, this is the stupidest shit I ever did in my life. Right. I go, this is so stupid. I can't believe. I said, fine, we're going to go do this. We're going to do it. We're going to do it. So we did it. We walked through there. There was 3 somebodies were there. When they saw us, they started running. And one of the guys said, you want me to shoot at him? I go, no, just let them go. Ain't nothing out there, and they're not going to hurt us. Just let them go. Yep. And so then I called in, we're clear. So for us, we had landed, and now we're facilitating that part, but expanding out our sector, because we think that the French still might push tanks over our way. While I'll just back up one section. When we were doing all that surrendering and stuff, we got intel that the 30 some odd tanks were going to hit us, right? And so I'm on top of this freaking hill, and here comes this from brigade, this intel report. There are tanks coming your way, and I'm going. The Chinese have this great saying: in the moment of victory, fasten your chin strap. you think so? My sergeant major, Riley, he walks up, says, I'll take care of it. And so he takes 6 tow vehicles out to the west, about 10 kilometers, and puts up a picket line. And they didn't get to us. Either the French or our Apaches took care. They never got to us.
But he still set up a blocking position to solve that problem for you.
He saw I was up to my elbows with Al, and he goes, I got it. And of course, he was so good, he was worth 2 platoons in himself. He was just so good, right? So he took care of us. So back to G+1, our job was to help facilitate the rest of the division. They're going to set up the FARP. We're going to provide the defense, and then on G+2, 2nd Brigade was going to go up and go near Talil Air Force Base at a place called FOB Viper. Right. So we're going to set up these two situations, G+1 3rd Brigade, G+2 2nd Brigade. Who the hell can do that stuff, right? It was something. On G+1 and G+2, I get a visitor on February 25th. Benny P., the division commander, comes up. Him and Colonel Hill, and I'm taking them through. And I know, well, I don't know, and I'm thinking they're probably thinking to themselves, man, we dodged a bullet. Yeah, you did.
Yeah.
Yeah. 6 Blackhawks coming in here. You land in the middle, and if the original plan had gone, we'd have hit in the dark with 344. Well, we're not going to make it.
There's a term that I've heard in the, the military as I went during my time was, flex on the X, right? Was understanding that no matter how much you plan, as soon as you step off that helicopter, the enemy gets a vote, and then also the plan will automatically change. What I've seen some people use is the idea of flex on the X as an excuse to not plan things very
Right.
detailed, because like, well, it's
Yeah.
just going to change anyway. I am of the contrary opinion. I believe that we plan, to nauseating, nose bleeding levels of detail so that everybody understands how
Right.
this thing should go. And then we all do understand that as soon as that first bullet whizzes past your head or something, or you're at a helicopter flying into, enemy territory, the plan will ultimately change, but the overarching strategy remains the same. And we have to be able to have these audibles. And I think that decentralized leadership, trust in your team to be able to make the right decisions, and then really leading them with an ability of, I would say, creating courage to make the right decision along the way, creates that ability to be able to flex on the X itself.
I'm going to deviate. I was big into reading military history, and I made my lieutenants read military history and the captains. Look, yeah, let's do this. We'll talk about it, because you might not be able to experience it, but you can at least mimic somebody, right? And so when you take a look at this looks a lot like what? Oh, that's right. Looks like market garden. Oh, yeah, where somebody gives you faulty intelligence, right? The British, the 6th Airborne Division, right? There are people that plan, there are people that execute, and then there are people that beat me out on fuck things, right? Right, and so, right, and so who is that person, and do they have the capability? Do they have the competency to do that? Because if you don't do it at the time that it needs to, then your operation has gone south, where it's almost irretrievable.
Right. The
Right?
consequences start cascading.
Yes, if we had landed there and taken serious casualties, the division, again, this is my opinion, is not going to the Euphrates. It's just not, because where they're at, where we set up the big gas station, it was about 8 kilometers away.
Mhm.
You're not setting up anything there, right? They'll blow that to hell,
Yep.
right? So either we take it. If I had gotten in trouble there, well, who's coming to get me? Nobody. There's nobody even close to me.
Correct.
Right? So if this could have gone any worse, I don't know how. Maybe they could have had 30 tanks there, right?
Sure.
But the problem is they were in caves inside the hill, so we couldn't get at them, right? A tank you could destroy.
Exactly. If you were to have been attacked at that moment, all of the other assets that were meant to be pushing other places on their own scheme of maneuver would have had to deviate to be able to solve a catastrophic, event inside of there.
Exactly.
So let's move into the kind of closing chapter of the book here. All's well that ends well. I really, really would like to implore any of our listeners, and especially we do have a lot of younger commanders who have reached out to me who are listeners on the show and really enjoy these kind of settings, of being able to talk to people who have walked in their boots just a few miles ahead of them, right? I like your idea on focusing on lethality. Can you talk to me a little bit about some of these highlights as we kind of go through?
Right. Well, what is the Army for? Right. Famous radio commentator, it was to break things and kill people. Well, there's a lot of truth in that, right? So what is your core competency? Being able to inflict lethality on the other side, right? How are we going to do that? We're going to be a professional army. So anything that deviates or takes away energy from that primary focus is, in my view, wrong. Why did you come here? Right? You volunteered to be a soldier. What does a soldier do? Does a lot of things, but its primary mission is to enforce the nation's will, right?
Mhm.
And so that for the Army, that's closing with and destroying the enemy. That's what we're going to do. So anytime you take away from that, right, for whatever reason, it's not, for me, it's not a good reason. It's just not a good reason, right? Of course, there are other things but your primary focus has to be on the lethality, and it has to be in this type of a world, just like us. How much time do you got to get ready? None. You got to come now. Get your stuff ready and get on the plane.
Yep.
That's what these guys were facing. So you're either ready or you're not ready. And if you're not ready, and I tell commanders, get ready. Don't make excuses, right? You figure out how to get as close as you can to get them as up to speed as you can. And don't say, well, I don't have this, or I don't want to hear it, right? I know you don't have it. Still get it done. You got to get it done, right? Because your unit are going to suffer for it.
Yeah.
You will, right? Who, like Task Force Smith in 1950 in Korea, got destroyed. Why? Well, it just wasn't ready to go to war. It came from that, I believe, it became from that uh, uh, army in Japan. They brought over, they weren't in shape. They didn't have, they hadn't been doing what they should have been to keep that razor's edge, and then they get beat. Well, don't get beat.
I appreciate that. So what about so this here, train and treat your soldiers as if they were your own sons and daughters. Can you expand on that?
Yeah, one, you don't, if you have a child, you want the child to grow up to be an adult. You get a young private, right? He's 18 years old. He didn't know nothing from nothing. So who's he going to look to? You, right? Be the model, right? Show him how to think. Show him not what to think, but how to think.
Love
Show him
that.
that, hey, you know what? You're supposed to be kind of a badass if you're a soldier. Well, get that way. The way you get that way is, I don't know, work out, get
Right.
that way, right? Right? Know your job, right? But don't abuse them. You wouldn't abuse your child. You want to set your child up for success. Well, success for soldiers staying alive. So let's set them up to do that, right? Right? Just let's do that, right? You don't coddle your kids. You can pat them on the back, put your arm around. I did that shit all the time, right? Tell them it's okay. But at the end, if they got knocked down, tell them, get up, let's get going, right? Because that's how you make a champion. It's not that if you get down or knocked down, it's if you get knocked down, you get back up and get going, right? Just get them as prepared as you can to go face what they might have to do.
And then lastly, it says here, train soldiers to be hard, but also to think.
Right. Yeah. And I guess I'm not the hardest of guys. Or there's a fine line between being hard and stupid.
That's
Right?
my
You don't want
favorite
these,
military line, by the way. I
right?
love that. I would say that
There
all
is.
the time.
Right. You can be hard, just don't be stupid. Why are you doing that? That's stupid. So if you think it's stupid, probably is. Right? Kind of use your gut. You've seen enough. There's times where you have to be hard. I'm just going to be hard. I'm going to be harder than you. Right? You got to be hard, but you don't have to be stupid. Right? And do something that you shouldn't have been doing in the first place, and then there's repercussions for it that you probably didn't want, right? And that way, troops look at you and you go, "Oh yeah, I want to be like that dude. I want to be a thinking soldier, a hard guy, somebody who sets the example." But when you don't have to be egregiously hard, you're not. You don't have to do that.
Absolutely love that. I really, as we start to kind of, wind this down, I want to thank you for really writing this. You've captured such a pivotal moment in American foreign policy that set the stage. I think that there was a large misunderstanding of the Iraqi army's capabilities. Uh, in hindsight. What I actually think it was the overmatch, the professionalism, and the
Oh
tactical
yeah.
prowess of the American military. It wasn't that the Iraqi army was not good. It's that the American military was so superior that it made surrender the only option for the Iraqi army because of stories like we've heard today?
1990, if you say January, the Iraqi army was the most feared army in the Middle East. The Iranians wanted nothing to do with them. Syrians, Egyptians, I don't even think the Israelis wanted to mess with them, right? They had a lot of equipment. Most of the equipment was pretty technologically advanced. They had a lot of jet fighters. They had Scuds, and they had freaking gas. And they had, I mean, people forget the biggest fear of Desert Storm was getting gas. And one of the chapters in there, I talk about that, right? Of getting exposed to it, where all your gas alarms go off. Why? Because there's gas in the air. That's why. That's why it's going off, right? So you have to deal with that. I put in there at the very beginning of the chapter about the Smash Mouth, a renaissance. We got all this esoteric theory and all that stuff, but at the end, we're going to break your jaw and cut your guts out. That's what we're going to do, right? And so we went about doing that. I don't mean to be brutal about it. That's just who we were. We were professional soldiers doing a professional job. You can take a look at American history, but nothing was like that, where this army went through the fourth largest army in the world in 4 days. I know there was a 6-week air campaign, right? But the way we did it, the professionalism and I don't want to call out of box, but this idea of vertical envelopment, right? Only the American army, you can think about it, but doing it is another thing. We thought about it and go, yeah, we can do that. And we did it, and we put them to their knees,
Yep.
right?
Within a matter of days, which is an
With
absolute
a matter of days. Yeah.
You brought this army, you cut deep into their heart and then broke their will to fight.
Yep.
And with that, I really want to thank you for what through the Renaissance of the 1970s through the 1990s of the Renaissance of thought and action paved the way for the way
Yep.
that I fought in my Iraq and
Exactly.
Afghanistan timeframe. So, with that, oh, please go ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to say one. The military of today is the grandson of that army, right? That thinking, well-trained, not army, the military, across the Marines, the Air Force, the Navy, all that stuff that went into the 80s. Yeah, you guys are it. And you look around at what the military of today has been able to do, and you're going, like, damn, that's good.
Damn,
Right?
that's good.
Damn, that's good.
You paved the path for the next generation, and I really appreciate that. So, with that, what I like to do is give any guest on the show the last few moments to be able to speak to whoever they like and say, basically the floor is yours to say or speak and do whatever you like.
To the guys that were in my unit, right? Tertechny and Chapel and Sergeant Major Riley and all the folks, right? You don't want to talk too much. You get emotional here. You were the best. The best. To the American public that got behind us, right? Right. That said, we're not going to do that. And it's the same thing now. We're not going to do that Vietnam stuff again, where we turn our back on you. Part of it. We're not. And just to everybody that supported us, all the people out at San Mateo, Linda Patterson, my wife, Maureen, all those folks, we could not have done it. We couldn't have done it without you, right? You took off that burden of taking care of stuff that we couldn't handle. Well, we can never say enough about it. And lastly, to all the military folks that are on here, retired or active, keep doing what you're doing. Somebody's got to guard the country, and that's you. So make it happen.
Well, with that, sir, retired Army Colonel Frank Hancock, author of the book Operation Desert Storm: How Two Young Intelligence Analysts and an Infantry Battalion Changed the War in Iraq. Sir, thank you so much for spending the few hours with us. This has been a fantastic story, super compelling. I would suggest anybody that wants to know about how that war went down and also about leadership when things start to go wrong and having the moral courage to be able to stand up for what's right and listen to two intelligence analysts who saved a ton of lives. Colonel Frank Hancock, thank you so much for coming on the show. I do appreciate it, and I look forward to many more conversations in the future with you.
Yeah, thank you very much.